Right now, 90% of us are making this subconscious biological error, and it's actively draining our lifespans.
Yeah, literally draining it.
And the crazy part is, it's happening roughly 20,000 times a day. So imagine for a second that you just bought a brand new top-of-the-line smartphone, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
You take it out of the box, it's sleek, the screen is gorgeous. But by 10 in the morning, the battery is just, well, it's already in the red.
Oh, the worst feeling.
Right, and the phone is physically hot to the touch, and it keeps glitching. So your first thought is obviously that the hardware is broken.
You'd want to return it immediately.
Exactly. But then a technician looks at it and laughs. They tell you the hardware's totally fine. The actual problem is a background app that's just running constantly, completely out of sight.
Just draining everything.
Yeah. You don't even know it's there, but it is aggressively draining your battery, overheating the system, and, slowly ruining the device.
And that is honestly the perfect analogy for what is happening inside the human body right now.
It really is.
Because it's running in the background, you never think to check it. But that invisible sabotage is exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to human respiration.
Welcome to this custom deep dive, by the way. We are on a very specific mission today. We're exploring the hard science of respiratory mechanics.
Yes, the actual mechanics.
And we are pulling our insights from this genuinely fascinating source today. It's called Mission 180, the science of diaphragmatic breath control. Specifically, we're looking at episode 33.
Right.
And the data here is just uncompromising. I mean, it argues that the physical way you inhale literally dictates your cellular health.
Which is such a crucial distinction to make right off the bat.
Yeah, how so?
Well, we're moving entirely past the typical wellness advice, right? The whole just take a deep breath to relax thing.
Oh, yeah, the yoga studio advice.
Exactly. We are looking at the actual physics and the biomechanics of how air enters your body. I mean, if 90% of people are doing it wrong, we need to look at the mechanics of what that failure actually looks like.
So what does the wrong way physically look like then?
Well, the source data presents this really relatable archetype for this. Someone named Seth Karadimal.
Okay, Seth.
Yeah, think about someone like Seth, or frankly, think about yourself when you are just staring intently at a laptop screen.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
You're hunched over, your shoulders are raised, kind of creeping up toward your ears.
Well, I'm literally adjusting my posture right now as you say that.
Right. There is this constant low-grade physical tension in your upper body.
Yeah.
You have essentially locked your rib cage into this rigid box.
And because that physical posture creates a cage, Seth can only take short, shallow breaths.
Right, exactly. He's exclusively using the uppermost part of his lungs.
Just the very top.
Yeah, so the air comes in just a fraction, his collarbones and his upper chest rise slightly, and then he exhales. It's this rapid, highly restricted cycle.
So he's completely bypassing the vast majority of his respiratory system. I have to challenge the severity of this, though. I mean, I get that breathing shallowly into the upper chest might make someone feel, a bit tense or fatigued.
Sure.
But the data argues this actively decreases lifespan. Is it really knocking years off, or is it just making us uncomfortable?
No, it is absolutely knocking years off, and it comes down to a relentless, cumulative degradation of your internal organs.
Wow. Okay.
To understand why, you have to look at the evolutionary biology of how the brain actually interprets breathing patterns. Like, why does upper chest breathing trigger such a violent systemic reaction?
Right. Why would the body care that much?
Well, if you were a primitive human and you were suddenly sprinting away from a predator.
Like a tiger or something.
Yeah, exactly. You do not take long, slow, deep breaths. You pant. You take rapid, shallow breaths high up into your chest to get these quick, inefficient boasts of oxygen to your muscles.
Just so you can survive the next 30 seconds.
Precisely.
So the brain is hardwired to associate shallow chest breathing with an immediate threat to your life.
That's it. Your brain interprets rapid, shallow chest breathing as a state of absolute emergency.
Oh, wow.
So when Seth is just, sitting at his desk answering an email, but he's breathing high and shallow, his brain assumes there's a tiger in the room.
So the physiological response to that must be massive. Like, the brain doesn't just casually note the tiger, right? It prepares for war.
It initiates a full-blown chemical crisis. The brain immediately pumps out cortisol and adrenaline.
The stress hormones.
Exactly. It spikes your blood pressure to push blood to your limbs. It redirects energy entirely away from long-term maintenance, things like digestion, immune function, and cellular repair.
Because who cares about digesting lunch if you're about to be lunched?
Exactly. It pushes all of your biological resources toward immediate survival. And if you live your entire life in that state, if you're part of that 90% right, you are marinating your internal organs in stress hormones all day, every day.
Man, and that wear and tear is where the lifespan decrease comes in. It's like driving a car in first gear on the highway. You are going 60 miles an hour, but you refuse to shift up.
That is exactly the mechanism.
The engine is just screaming at 5,000 RPMs. You're burning through fuel, and you're actively destroying the internal parts of the engine way before their time.
It's a biological engine running far too hot for far too long. And furthermore, by only using that top fraction of lung capacity, you are in a state of chronic oxygen deficiency.
Wait, really? Chronic deficiency?
Yes, because the upper lobes of the lungs actually have the least amount of blood flow.
Oh, because of gravity.
Exactly, because of gravity. Most of the blood pooling in your lungs is at the very bottom. So by shallow breathing, you are putting air where there is barely any blood, and you're ignoring the blood-rich areas entirely.
So your body is quite literally starving for the optimal oxygen exchange it needs to function?
Exactly.
Which totally explains the nonstop fatigue. I mean, you could sleep for 9 hours, but if you spend your waking life starving your cells of optimal fuel and soaking them in cortisol,
You are going to feel exhausted.
Yeah. So if this shallow upper chest breathing is the mechanical failure that breaks the engine, how do we fix it? What does the optimal gear shift actually look like?
Well, the mechanical solution is a system called diaphragmatic breathing. And the source uses a counterexample to Seth, a master of this technique named Master Dinanath.
Okay, Master Dinanath.
Yeah, his approach represents the absolute mastery of respiratory mechanics, and it is a complete physical reversal of everything the 90% are doing.
Let's break down the actual physics of what he's doing differently then, because first, the text says he is breathing exclusively through his nose, right? Deeply and slowly.
Yes, nasal breathing is step one.
But the core mechanical difference seems to be where the physical movement happens in his body. Like when he inhales, his chest stays completely still.
Completely still.
Instead, his stomach expands. As the air comes in, his belly physically pushes outward.
And that specific movement, the belly pushing out, is the entire secret to unlocking respiratory efficiency.
Wait, I need to stop you there. My lungs are in my chest.
Yes, they are.
They are positioned right behind my rib cage. Why on earth would I focus on pushing my stomach out? That feels completely backward.
It does.
I mean, if I want to pull maximum air into my chest, shouldn't I be puffing my chest out as far as it can go?
It's a brilliant question, and honestly, that exact paradox is why so many people fail to breathe correctly. It feels completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, it really does.
But when you look at the architecture of the human torso, it's pure physics. Your lungs are not muscles.
Right.
They cannot expand on their own. They are essentially these passive, spongy bags sitting inside the sealed chamber of your chest cavity. To get air into them, you have to create a vacuum inside that chamber.
Just like a bellows you would use to stoke a fire. The bag of the bellows doesn't pull the air.
No.
Pulling the handles apart creates empty space, which sucks the air in.
That is the perfect mechanical equivalent. And the primary handle of your biological bellows is this massive, incredibly powerful, dome-shaped muscle.
The diaphragm.
Exactly. It's sitting right at the base of your rib cage, acting as the floor of your chest cavity. That is your diaphragm.
So the diaphragm separates the chest cavity, where the heart and lungs are, from the abdominal cavity, where the stomach and intestines are.
Exactly. Now, when you are exhaling and relaxed, the diaphragm curves upward into your chest. It basically rests underneath your lungs like an upside-down bowl.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But when you want to take a true deep breath, that diaphragm muscle contracts and violently flattens out, moving downward.
Wow.
And by driving downward, it rapidly increases the volume of the chest cavity above it. That sudden empty space creates a massive vacuum pressure.
Which forcefully sucks air deep into the lungs.
Yes, specifically into the very lowest, most blood-rich lobes of your lungs.
Okay, the vacuum makes perfect sense. But I'm still stuck on the stomach part. Why does my belly push out if the action is happening up in the chest?
Because of what is sitting directly beneath the diaphragm.
Oh, the organs.
Yes, your abdominal cavity is packed tightly with organs. Your liver, your stomach, your spleen, your intestines.
It's crowded in there.
Very. So when that huge diaphragm muscle flattens out and drives downward like a piston to create room for the lungs, it physically shoves all of those abdominal organs out of the way.
I see.
And since your spine is in the back and your pelvis is at the bottom, Those organs only have one direction they can possibly move.
They have to go forward. They push outward against the abdominal wall.
Exactly.
So your stomach isn't actually filling with air at all. It is literally just getting shoved out of the way so the diaphragm has room to drop.
You've got it. Expanding the stomach is just the mechanical byproduct of allowing the diaphragm to drop fully.
That is fascinating.
And that drop is the absolute only way to utilize the full capacity of the lungs. The lowest parts of the lungs are where the magic happens.
Because of the blood pooling.
Right. Because of gravity, that's where the blood pools. That is where the most highly efficient, massive-scale oxygen exchange takes place.
And shallow breathers never even reach it.
Never. But deep, diaphragmatic breathers fill those lower lobes completely with every single breath.
And the data points out that this physical action, this mechanical dropping of the diaphragm and pushing out of the stomach, is what instantly begins to calm the nervous system.
Yes, immediately.
You're no longer panting like you're running from a predator. You are sending a totally different mechanical signal.
You are. But the physical expansion of the lungs and the optimized oxygen exchange are really just the first layer of the benefit here.
Right, because getting more oxygen is great, but oxygen alone doesn't explain the massive drop in blood pressure.
No, it doesn't.
Or the halt in cortisol production, or these wild claims about extending lifespan. There has to be a deeper mechanism bridging the lungs and the brain.
And there is. This is where we cross over from biomechanics into neurology.
Oh, interesting.
Because when you drop the diaphragm, you aren't just creating a vacuum for air. You are physically interacting with the most important nerve in your autonomic nervous system.
Which is?
It's called the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve. Okay, I know it translates from Latin as the wandering nerve.
Yes, exactly.
It's an incredibly complex structure, but what is its actual physical path in the body, and why does breathing affect it so drastically?
Well, it wanders all the way from your brainstem, down through the front of your neck, into your chest where it branches out to monitor your heart and your lungs.
Okay.
And then it continues all the way down into your abdomen to connect with your digestive organs. It is essentially the central communication superhighway between your brain and your internal organs.
That's a huge nerve.
It's massive. And crucially, about 80% of the fibers in the vagus nerve are sensory.
Meaning what, exactly?
That means their primary job is to send information from the body up to the brain, basically reporting on the state of your organs.
Okay, so it's a massive sensory cable, but how does expanding my stomach and dropping my diaphragm interact with that cable?
Because the vagus nerve physically passes directly through an opening in the diaphragm to reach the stomach and intestines.
Oh, wow. Wait, so they physically intersect?
They do, literally. Imagine the vagus nerve as a physical tension cable, or like a tripwire running from your brain down to your gut.
Okay, tripwire. I like that.
When you take a shallow chest breath, nothing happens to that cable. But when you take a deep diaphragmatic breath, that massive muscle drops down, expands, and it physically tugs, stretches, and massages the vagus nerve.
You are literally pulling the tripwire.
You're pulling the tripwire. And when that nerve is physically stimulated by the movement of the diaphragm, it instantly fires a powerful signal straight up to the brainstem.
What does the signal say?
It reports the breathing is slow, the diaphragm is fully engaged, there is no predator, we are entirely safe.
And what does the brain do with that specific signal?
It acts as the ultimate physiological switch. The vagus nerve is the main driver of your parasympathetic nervous system.
Which is the rest and digest mode, right?
Exactly. It is the direct biological antagonist to the fight or flight mode. The absolute second that signal hits the brainstem, the brain slams the brakes on cortisol production. It signals the heart to dramatically slow its beating. It dilates your blood vessels, which plummets your blood pressure back to a safe baseline.
So if you are caught in that 90%, if you're trapped in that invisible stress loop, this is the manual override. It's a built-in biomechanical brake pedal.
That's exactly what it is.
But the data goes even further than just stopping stress. It claims that stimulating the vagus nerve initiates active cellular repair throughout the body.
Yes, it does.
How does pulling a nerve tell a cell to fix itself?
It comes down to biological resource management. Cellular repair, things like cleaning out dead cells, reducing systemic inflammation, rebuilding damaged proteins. That is an incredibly energy-intensive process.
Right, it takes a lot of fuel.
Exactly. So when your body is in fight or flight mode, it completely shuts down cellular repair because it cannot afford to waste energy on long-term maintenance when it thinks you are about to be eaten.
It performs a biological triage. That makes total sense. You don't remodel the kitchen while the house is on fire.
That is the perfect way to look at it. But when you activate the vagus nerve via the diaphragm, you tell the brain the fire is out.
Wow.
The vagus nerve actually controls what is known as the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. It literally commands the spleen and other organs to stop releasing inflammatory proteins.
Just tells them to stop.
Yes, it signals the immune system to stand down from high alert and begin the slow, methodical work of clearing out metabolic waste and repairing cellular damage.
That is just staggering to think about. I mean, we often view our autonomic nervous system as something entirely out of our control.
Most people do, yeah.
The heart beats, digestion happens, cells repair themselves, and we just kind of go along for the ride. You can't just sit there and consciously command your liver to regenerate.
Right.
You can't just think your way out of systemic inflammation.
You don't have direct access to those dials on the control board, with one singular exception.
Breathing.
Breathing.
It is the only vital function that bridges the gap. I mean, it runs completely automatically while you sleep, but the moment you decide to take control of it, you can. You can just seize the steering wheel.
It is the one conscious lever you have that connects directly to the unconscious control room.
That's wild.
By choosing to change the mechanical depth of your breath, by forcing the diaphragm down and pushing the stomach out, you physically pull the vagal tripwire.
Yeah.
You force the brain to lower the heart rate. You force the body to begin repairing its tissues.
It is a literal cheat code for human biology. And when you look at it through that lens, the claim about lifespan isn't just wellness marketing anymore, you know? It's hard, verifiable physiology.
Exactly, because when you are in a state of cellular repair, your body is actively combating the aging process. You are preserving tissue integrity.
While the people panting in their upper chest are accelerating the degradation of those same tissues.
Which perfectly distills the absolute core rule of this respiratory science. The source data summarizes the entire mechanism into one profound guiding principle.
Let's hear it.
Longevity is hidden in the depth of the lungs.
Longevity is hidden in the depth of the lungs. I love that. The prescription here is just surprisingly straightforward once you understand the mechanics. It's about less frequency and more volume.
Stop taking 15 to 20 shallow upper chest breaths every minute. Shift out of first gear.
Move toward taking 5 to 6 slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths instead.
Let the belly expand. Drop the floor of the chest cavity. Hit the vagus nerve. Mechanically signal to your body that it is safe to heal.
So we've established the mechanics of the engine, we've found the secret physical lever to pull, and we understand the microscopic physiological miracles that happen when we do.
We do.
But optimizing the human machine doesn't stop with just the air we intake, does it?
No, it's just the beginning.
The exploration in Mission 180 is a progression. The data clearly previews that the next logical step moves from the air we breathe to the fuel we consume. Specifically, it points toward an upcoming focus on ahar shuddhi.
Right, which translates to dietary purification and the critical science of food selection.
Which is the necessary next step. Once you have the engine running efficiently, and you've used your breath to turn on the cellular repair mechanisms, you then have to look at the raw materials you are feeding those cells to rebuild with.
You have to. You've cleared the systemic static and stopped the unnecessary wear and tear. Now you need to provide high-quality structural data.
We've identified and fixed the hidden background app that was aggressively draining the battery. Now we have to look at exactly what kind of power source we are plugging that phone into to recharge it.
Exactly.
If your breath is the physical switch that turns on cellular repair, it really makes you wonder, what happens when that newly repaired, highly efficient engine is forced to run on low-grade fuel?
That is the big question.
But we will have to save that exact question for our next deep dive. Actually, before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought. If simply changing the mechanical depth of your breath can instantly flip a switch from pumping stress hormones to triggering actual cellular repair, what other automatic background processes in your body might be waiting for you to take conscious control?